Even staring at those, I can barely tell those are corpses. That's... yeah, I would never pick that up. I have a walkthrough telling me to loot those corpses, and I couldn't pick that up. I do not see a torch. Yeah, I saw this over here, and I tried to interact with it earlier, and it didn't do anything.
You take the torch.
What torch? Okay, I'm not going to question that.
Hello there. Could you help me? This water is so cold and I need someone to help warm me.
That's not a trap or anything. Am I out? Please! Please kill me. I am ready to die.
You wade out to the lake woman and take her in your arms. Her skin is soft but very cold.
And then we die. Yes!
Maybe you should have tried disarming the trap on the desk first. You set off a poison trap. You also find a Finally, you find some sort of...
That's it? It didn't even kill me? What? What? I'm actually upset about that. I mean, Muhammad Ali was obviously very talented and is also in the top 5 range.
You found my secret passageway. You must excuse me. I'm not quite myself anymore. Oh, don't worry. I won't hurt you.
Yes. Does it move? Yes. Does it have legs? No. Does it bounce? Yes. Is it alive? Yes. It's a snake that swallowed a rubber ball! No.
Be The relief.
Yeah, this is the point-and-click adventure experience I remember right here. What?
You get in some climbing practice, but you really can't see any more from up the tree than from the ground. In fact, you can scarcely see the forest for the trees.
What? 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 Okay, I couldn't time that better.
You slowly fill your flask with the greasy, grimy goo.
I love the way he says that. All right, so there's a bush here. Does anybody see a bush on this screen?
Listen, the werewolf eats children, which don't make him all bad.
Igor was not a child.
Hey, Yuri's daughter was eaten by one, huh?
No one knows what happened to Tanya. You cannot say she was eaten.
What else could have happened? I mean, we have the werewolf that did...
It'll break out of your little trick-or-treat jail and eat us all.
Hans, not one word about Tanya eaten by a werewolf will you make to Yuri. He and Bella have been hurt too deeply. As you are a man, do not open the wounds again.
Well, I'll tell you what, you suit yourself, pal, but at least they can be avenged now upon the werewolf!
Okay.
The gravedigger's missing!
I mean, we looked everywhere. He's usually under my wife's bed.
We even tried to talk to that quack Dr. Cranium.
That ridiculous doorbell!
At first, we thought he might be lost.
Then we found the gypsy.
The gypsy did it! He toasted Igor!
Yeah, and then he ate him. Check his breath. It smells like Igor.
Poor Igor.
How do you know what Igor smells like?
I'm telling you, gypsies are werewolves!
Yeah, gypsies are all tramps and thieves.
Gypsies cannot be trusted.
I think we're fixin' to have one less gypsy around here. Why don't you have a bake sale, pal, and send away for a clue? Everyone knows that gypsies are werewolves!
Yeah, little Igor was somebody's Big Mac, and you want us to just go home?
That werewolf is a danger to us all. Think of our families and our mistresses.
Do you think I would endanger the town by allowing him to escape? The gypsy is securely locked up. He will not get away. Werewolves are mere peasant tales.
You wanna see a peasant tale, pal? Look, we all know that werewolves are real.
Yeah, I saw the movie. They turn into wolves by the full moon.
They are harmed only by silver in wolf form.
They're allergic to wolfsbane.
There's a poem about it, okay? Even a man who's pure in heart.
And says his prayers by night.
Enough! Enough! It is all hearsay and speculation.
May become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms.
Oh, that's beautiful. And the autumn moon is bright.
Or so the charming legend says.
The gravedigger was missing last night.
And we matriculated on down to the cemetery to search, see?
Yeah, but we didn't have far to go. Just outside town, we caught ourselves a werewolf.
Yeah, but we found no trace of poor old Igor.
Enough! Igor is missing. We do not know what happened to him.
Weird to hear the Burgenmeister actually be the reasonable person here.
It is none of your...
Perfect. The gravedigger Igor's been killed.
And we captured a werewolf.
Listen, I'm telling you, Igor's death must be avenged.
Go home. Just go home, all of you. You do not know the truth yet.
We're gonna make the little gypsy tell the truth, don't you worry.
Yeah, let's see how much lying he does after we take his teeth out by hand.
Dimitri, dude, listen, we...
No, you listen, all of you. There is nothing to be done until we know all the facts. Now go home and let me do my job, please.
Seriously, folks, I went to the doctor just the other day and he said he had some good news and some bad news. What's the good news, I asked. You only have 3 months to live, said the doc. That's terrible. What's the bad news? I said. The doc replied, I'm getting married. I know I had an audience when I came in here. Anyhow, show me a guy with 1,000,000 kopecks, and I'll show you a guy who's rich. Hey, you only had to listen to this material. I'm the one who had to stand here and take it. Anyway, thank you. You've been a swell bunch of seats.
One of the first things I want to talk about today is actually related to the highlight reel, and I want to put this in the highlight reel because some people, I actually had a couple people mention that they thought it was weird that this game was scoring better than all the previous games so far in story. You'll notice even as of right now, as of this very second in time, this game is currently scoring better than the previous ones in the story axis. Now, the reason for that is, of course, because it has a better story, but hang on. Let's look into that slightly. Something that a few people have brought up in the past is the idea that a longer game is unfairly going to score better, which is funny because I've also heard the accusation that a shorter game is going to score better. And neither of these statements are true, of course, but in this case, let's ignore density and points and all that because the real relevance here is opportunity. The more you put into your game, the more opportunities you've created for those things to be good or bad. I mentally think of it as like you've got this, we could probably make a game out of this, like really simple phone kind of game, you know? Because you've got this bar, right? It's like, okay, do you want to have voice acting? Okay, do you want to have proper animation? Okay, do you want to have any kind of branching paths? Okay, do you want to have levels? Do you want to have inventory? Do you want to have experience? And each one of these things forms a point on this line. And every single one of these is just an opportunity point. They could be good, or that could be bad. And that's the kicker right there. The more opportunities you create, the more possibilities you have to screw it up. It's one of the reasons why a game like Wolfenstein Youngblood, which has an enormous number of points in it, is one of the worst games I've ever reviewed, because virtually all those points were negatives. All of those went down, right? But with a game like Quest for Glory 4, they decided to add several things and branch out in a couple of ways, and those things have resulted in positives because they did them right. Voice acting is one of the more common examples. I've actually heard several people talk before about this, about how modern Final Fantasy games should by default rate better than older ones because they have voice acting. Obviously, I don't agree with that, but you get the overall point, right? So, just interesting to think about from my perspective, because honestly, if you've been paying attention, 2 and 3 and 4 have all been trying things. So this isn't exactly unique to 4. It just feels like 4 is the first time they're really succeeding more than they are not. Because, well, you saw the combat in 3. And the bugs in 2. The overworld in 3. And so forth and so on. You get the overall idea here. There's just... So the only... And Twitch does this on purpose, which is why they haven't changed this. They want people to do that share thing because it's a form of pressure marketing. Where, hey, look at all these other people who are subscribing. You should subscribe too. So they want people to put out the notifications. Frankly, I think they should just be mandatory at that point. Just make it so that whenever you sub, the thing goes through and they don't have to manually click a stupid button that may or may not show up depending on what browser they're using and what the current maneuvering of the moons is, or whatever. I suppose I should explain this out loud. God, I hate talking about this thing on my show. So here's the thing. There's only 2 ways to approach giving a negative for racial stereotyping. All or occasional, right? Either every instance of racial stereotyping is an automatic negative, the end, which is what I mentioned earlier, or we go with Alex's thing, where he says this is a specific case which counts. But the really horrible problem is the moment we add, well, this may or may not be a case-by-case thing, is the moment where we add polemic judgment to video game reviewing, is how I want to phrase that. Because that means every case of racial stereotyping will have to be analyzed one by one, and that's going to open that door for people to look at and say, oh, why didn't you think that was bad enough? Or, conversely, I didn't think that was bad enough. And now we have just created 2 separate argument points simply by having opened the door to begin with. That's what I meant. Why I'm not sure I want to go down that route. I get where you're coming from. I actually do. And it's just... Because the only way to do that with any degree of fairness would be to essentially pause the game right now and go spend however long it would take researching the Roma, and trying to figure out the history and the nature of it, the linguistics, and I would have to in-depth research it to determine for myself. No offense, Alex, but I can't just take someone in chat's word on it, right? I would have to go and research it myself and spend that time and effort really digging into it to try and make the judgment for myself. And then, and then I make the judgment. And even then, the two problems I mentioned earlier with some people being cool or some people not is something that would still exist. And yeah, it's time, it's polemic, and I'm not even sure it's really acceptable, if that makes any sense. In an ideal world, none of this would be a consideration, but it is not an ideal world. And so here I am. Does that make sense? I wanted to explain in full why I'm just kind of walking away from that one. It's just, oh. I'm not even going to put that in the highlight reel. I'll make a timestamp there. Okay, so.
Ah, the one who danced with you upon your last visit? The one who is lovely, lively, and, more than a handful? She is my mate, and we wolves mate for life.
Dude, you made me dance with her, okay? Google is how I find point-and-click adventure games nowadays. Back in the day, I'll tell you exactly how I found point-and-click adventure games. By going to the dollar store and buying the shareware disc for $1.
I believe I am on the verge of a major discovery. It came to me last night. I believe that there is a formula which can be used to create a rehydration solution.
It's called water.
Such a solution could be used to restore fluidity to any substance or object that has become prematurely dry. Why, if we can but manufacture Dr. Cranium's rehydration solution in sufficient quantities, we could rehydrate the great Shapirian Desert.
Oh, that's just Gatorade.
Of course, there are a few small bugs to be worked out. It would take most of the water in the world's oceans to make that much solution. Then there is the tiny snag that I have not been able to remember the formula since awakening from the dream.
You don't like my walking animation? Yeah, I wish we had ray tracing in this game. Could you imagine how much this sneaking animation would just... Like, we could see the shadows of the trees.
You turn the large skeleton key in the crypt door. With a sound like the groaning of an undead spirit, the massive door yawns wide open.
God, I love John Rice Davies. Just...
You take the sobbing child in your arms and carry her to the inn. You awaken her parents and are overwhelmed by their gratitude and joy. It is long before you manage to escape to the peace of your own room for what is left of the night.
That was surprisingly good. Yeah, that was straight up a Witcher quest. No joke. Holy crap. This is the first individual moment or quest I've given a plus for in the entire franchise, by the way.
The strangest thing happened. Someone broke into the old monastery and burned the place down. I don't suppose you'd know anything about this?
No, I wouldn't. Let's sneak out of town. I can't let anybody see me leave town. Damn, I've been spotted!
Wraith vanishes into nothingness, and the air slowly begins to regain some warmth.
Kill Katrina. Cop a feel is one of the options. I mean, kiss is bad enough, but what?
You lean over the coffin. and gently shake Katrina awake.
You know, that Geas is really effective. Like, that made me get all those things in the past.
Why? You can't. Why?
Okay.
You feel
Game?
it does.
Game?
This is a close-up.
Game?
Why? You... This is a close-up weapon.
Huh.
You can't jump. Why?
Okay. Alright. So I'm going to do my due diligence properly this time and hopefully remember to actually put the images up this time. Quest for Glory 4. Final story score. Plus 16. Which, if you're paying attention to the graphic on the screen, if you're on the highlight reel, absolutely stomps each of the previous Quest for Glory games. Which is something I stand behind firmly. This game does pretty much all the same things right that the previous Quest for Glory games did, with one exception. But then does a lot more right, like I talked about earlier. It had more points, and more of those points were positive. I'd say the one big flaw here is that it doesn't have as engaging of a story or premise as Quest for Glory 3 did, which caught me a lot more in the intro. But the difference is Quest for Glory 4 at least maintained relative quality, whereas 3 kind of fell off towards the end. The story, of course, is a density of 1.74 positives per hour, which is pretty damn good, and of course, a ratio of 100%, because that's kind of what a lot of these have been like. Gameplay-wise, the gameplay was a net -6, which sounds bad, and it is, but is the best gameplay we've had thus far in the Quest for Glory series. This gives us a gameplay per hour density of -0.65, and a ratio of 35%, which is the highest ratio we've had so far, as you can see. This gives us, drumroll please, a golden number of positive 25.14. Now, if you're watching the highlight reel, you of course see what that means. But if you're not, if you're here live, that means our final scores for the Quest for Glory series, and I'll go ahead and put this in the highlight reel too. Quest for Glory 1 was a net golden number of 0. 2 was -5.15. 3 was -4.77. And 4 is positive 25.14. That is actually pretty decent. I don't know where that sits versus other point-and-click adventure games, because I haven't made that graphic yet, but if you're seeing that in the highlight reel, you will see where that sits on the relative to other point-and-click adventure games. So, that's not exactly shabby, and leads me to my final thoughts. Time Lost asked a question I wanted to save for here. Did I find the Quest for Glory series a positive experience? Let me be very honest. I stand behind all those scores, and 2 of them are negatives. But I still don't regret it. I've talked about this concept before. Sometimes I go through a series and it scores badly, but I still appreciate having done that, either because it was worthwhile to analyze bad gameplay or bad game design, or because it was interesting to see where we've come from. The historian in me, for lack of a better way to put it, looking at where game design has been to see where game design is now, right? And it's just kind of interesting to me to see this development and follow through on what they changed and where and how. It is especially interesting because, to me, these kind of games certainly have their own particular niche. Not just even the point-and-click adventure games. The parser games, right? You've played Zork, right? Like, to use the most famous example. But we didn't talk about this a lot during this series because we technically weren't playing any of the parser versions. But parser games are actually the little baby step that then led into actual point-and-click adventure games. And parser games are structurally almost identical, the only main difference being the mechanism of interaction. Ironically, in many of these cases, I would have a lot easier time playing a parser game than a point-and-click, because you don't have to find the pixel, but at the same time a much harder time because figuring out what they call things or how they spell things can be an issue. See the infamous Rumpelstiltskin bug for a good example of that one. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. I feel like these are interesting games to perceive and go through and to analyze. And I feel like I don't know how to phrase this. I feel richer for having gone through them. It sounds so stupid and cliched, but that is the truth. I actually feel richer for having actually gone through these, and I feel like my overall gaming lexicon and analysis lexicon have been improved for the experience. Make of that what you will. I do have a few things to do, some paperwork, some lunch, so I'm going to go do that, and whenever I'm done, we will go ahead and move forward with the Jester game, which I can never think of the damn name of, which we'll be starting sometime later today. Hope to see you there, and I hope you've enjoyed.